Thanks for joining tonight. My name is Paul Shurtleff, and today I'm going to be tying this Midge emerger. It's got a peacock quill body, and it has an over rib of UV Flashabou, and it has the quill has been coated with Semperfli's no-tack UV resin. It has also a thorax of peacock with a grizzly hackle wrapped through it and a foam head. And so I'm going to get started on this. So for the hook, I'm going to be using a Moonlit Fly Fishing ML061. It's this guy right here, ML061, and this is in an 18. And for the thread, I'm going to be using Semperfli's Nano Silk in 18/aught in black. So I'm just going to get that started. And I start right behind the eye, just a couple turns. Now, you move that thread back up towards the eye, and then for the post, I'm going to be using these Semperfli's booby tubes, and this is in the small size, a 2.6 mil in white, and I'm just going to take that, and it comes in a long strip, and I'm just going to set this right here about the length where I want it, and I'm going to flatten out my thread first with a counterclockwise turn, because if I don't, this thread is going to cut through it like pretty quick. So I'm going to give it a couple turns and then a little bit more pressure, and then I'm going to start wrapping back, and then I'm going to pull straight down on the thread to cut the foam. You use the thread to cut the foam. And then I'm just going to come over those wraps. And then right here is what I'm going to use where I'm going to tie in the UV Flashabou, and it's actually an ice blue Flashabou, and it's just a single strand, and I'm going to tie that in right there, and I'm going to wrap this down in touching turns well down into the bend, about halfway into the bend, and then come up about halfway. Now for the body, I'm going to be using Semperfli's picric acid dyed peacock curls. These are just this is just strung peacock, but it's been dyed in picric acid, which turns it this really cool yellowy green color. And so I'm going to take a single strand, and then I'm going to strip it. And I usually strip it. There's several different ways to do it. You can use eraser is pretty popular, but I just use my nail and thumb. And I'm just going to come over and just rake this down and pull all the fibers off. So here I got the quill all ready to go. Let's see. There we go. And then I'm going to tie that in, and I'm going to make sure that butt ends at about right where I ended the foam, about right there. And that's to gauge distance for the abdomen on this pattern. I'm just going to wrap that down right over to where I ended the ribbing. And then I've got my thread flattened out, but I'm going to increase that a little bit by giving it a counterclockwise turn. Because what I'm going to do is build up a smooth underbody now. And I'm going to come all the way. I'm just going to kind of come back and forth. I want a slight taper on this. And I'm going to end right there, and that's the position. This position right here is where I want my thorax to start, about right here. So, and I'm just going to wrap those in as close touching turns as I can. If there's a little bit of a space, it's no big deal, because I'm going to over rib this with the UV Flashabou here. Okay, I'm just going to come over there, a couple turns to secure that down. Then, because this is nano silk, I just put a little bit of pressure on it and cut that right off. And now I'm going to do the over rib of this Flashabou, and these I'm going to space out a little bit more. A couple of turns with that, and then remove. And now at this point, I'm going to add the coating to secure the peacock. And what I'm going to be using is the Semperfli's No-Tack UV resin. And I'm just going to put a little drop on here and then smooth it out. I'm going to hit it with the UV laser to cure it. This laser is more intense of a beam, so it doesn't take as long. It doesn't take as long to cure the resin as it does a standard light. Now at this point, I'm going to tie in a grizzly hackle, and I've already pre-measured this, but it's about the hook gap, the fiber length. And how I'm going to orient that is I'm going to stand some of these fibers up, and then I'm going to expose a tie-in spot, and then I'm going to influence the direction this hackle turns by taking a little bit more off the leading edge, and that's the edge that's going to hit the hook first. See that? Now when I tie this in, I'm going to tie it in right here on my side, but that first turn is going to, because of how I oriented the feather, it's going to influence the direction that hackle turns. Now for the thorax, I'm going to use more of the picric acid dyed peacock from Semperfli, And these are just two. I'm using uh, two fibers, two hurls, and I'm just going to even up the ends for a tie-in spot, and I'm going to take 2-3 turns, but I'm going to allow the third or the fourth turn to come over with the peacock. So what I'm going to do now is basically turn this peacock into a dubbing rope by spinning it around the thread. And what this does is, because peacock's not really that strong of a material, this is going to increase the durability of that peacock significantly. And because it's nano silk, it'll be almost bulletproof. So I'm just going to wrap up for a thorax, a few turns. And if it's not as bushy, it's no big deal, because I'm going to come through that with the hackle here in just a second. So I've completely wrapped that peacock off, and you shouldn't even have to trim it. You just give it a pop. It comes right off. Then I'm going to come over just with one more collecting wrap, and now I'm going to wrap the hackle. Now, because of how I orient it, it's going to turn exactly how I want it with the first turn. I'm only going to come through that with maybe 2 or 3 turns, real sparse. One more in there. Okay, 2 turns to tie off. I'm going to put one more right in front. And then I'm going to bring everything back, exposing the hook eye, and then I'm going to put a few turns right there in front of the hook eye. And now I'm going to go ahead and whip finish right there behind the hook eye. I like to put 2 whip finishes on with nano silk because this stuff is super slick. Now I'm going to remove the thread, and while I got the scissors in hand, I'm going to take that hackle off too. Alright. Okay, that is my finished midge emerger. And thanks for tuning in.